Honey, don't walk out, I'm too drunk to follow. You know you won't feel this way tomorrow. Well, I'm a little rough around the edges and inside a little hollow. And I'm faced with something sometimes that are so hard to swallow. Hey, but I was born a rebel down in Bewley on a Tuesday morning. Of 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot's on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. She picked me up in the morning and she paid on my ticket, said, screamed in the car and left me out in the thicket. Well, I never would have dreamed that her heart was so wicked. I keep coming back, 'cause it's so hard to kick it. Hey, 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 and I was born a rebel down in Dixie on a Sunday morning. Of 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot's on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. Even before my father's father, well, they called us all rebels. They burned out our crops and they leveled our town. Well, I still feel the eyes of those red-coated devils, and I'm walking around tonight through the concrete and metal. Hey, 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 'cause I was born a rebel up in Bewley on a Tuesday morning. Of 1 foot in the grave, of 1 foot on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. Hey, 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 I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel.
If there were but 100 of us remained alive, never would we, under any condition, be brought under anybody's idea of a new world order. It is, in truth, not for honor, nor for glory, certainly not for fucking riches that we are fighting, but for freedom. For that one thing alone, which no honest person would give up save with life itself. Once we were warrior poets. For now, we must stand for peace. But make no mistake, if you hear my voice tonight, you are the resistance, and you better get ready to play your part. Oh, pardon me. As ever, where do we start? Alex is in the background because we've still not managed to sort out our new arrangements for streaming. So she's producing the show tonight, which is great because then I can do things like this. When you're ready, Alex, can you throw up tonight's meme because it's brilliant and I want to explain it to the audience. Alex is the one who comes up with the show's memes. I generally give her a title and off she goes. So there it is. For worldwide viewers, you may not understand it. If you're in the UK of a certain age, you will get it. Desperate Dan was a cartoon character in a British um, comic called The Dandy. In I think it started in the 70s. I remember it throughout my childhood, 70s, 80s, and then probably into the 90s. And Desperate Dan was a cowboy, and he was a big hulk of a cowboy. And he was always getting himself into scrapes. And he liked a cow pie that had the horns sticking out of the crust. That was his treat for when he overcame all the things that the sticky messes that he got himself into. The one thing that Desperate Dan was known for was breaking things, blundering about like a bull in the china shop, and breaking shit. The only difference between Desperate Dan and Desperate Don, as you can see there, is Desperate Dan had a good heart. Alex, you can take away the meme. But thank you for it, and thank you for all you do. Breaking news just before coming on this evening was that there is a proto deal. Now, people, please don't get carried away because I'm seeing people online getting carried away with this. There is a proto deal between Iran and Oman in the governments of the Gulf of Hormuz. Now, that deal has still to be ratified by the Iranian Security Council and by the Iranian Supreme Leader. It is, as some better analysts expected would be, a side deal, a way for Taco Trump to save face, where between Iran and Oman, they work out a mechanism for ships to pass freely through the Strait of Hormuz. Thus, Iran not directly negotiating with America, and America not directly negotiating with Iran. However, Desperate Dawn, in an attempt to be a hard man, may yet scupper the whole fucking works. So do not get excited. Yes, the US Treasury seems to have lifted some sanctions on some elements of the IRGC, but that doesn't mean they won't be put back on just as quick if Desperate Dawn gets a phone call from fucking Netanyahu. The entire Middle East is very chaotic at the moment. But before I try and explain some of that to you, first, let's just deal with the facts. Up front, I told you the consequences of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And whilst some of you were doubtful, some of you said, oh no, we've still got diesel here, there's no shortages. Well, wouldn't you fucking Adam and Eve it? It would seem that once again I'm 3 months ahead of the curve because once more we now have the chief executive officer of ESSO the giant Dutch oil company, who has petrol stations up and down the United Kingdom, who has come out and said, we are imminently facing diesel shortages. They made a decision. You see, oil, you get sweet and sour crude. Sour crude has more sulfates. Sour crude, the middle distillates of that, is what becomes either avgas, kerosene, or diesel. They had a bigger markup on kerosene, avgas, so they were using the middle distillates whilst Trump was playing with the oil markets. Deal, no deal, deal, no deal. Talking to the Iranians, not talking to the, talking to we're going to negotiate. We're going to bomb them out of fucking existence. Manipulating oil markets so that him and his cronies can make billions. The oil companies themselves were prioritizing aviation fuel because there was a much bigger market. Here's the problem: we all need fucking diesel. Not just because I just bought another diesel car, but because everything that runs in modern society runs on diesel. We still have diesel trains in this country. We all trucks are run on diesel. You don't get petrol fucking lorries. And the ships that sail on the sea are fueled by diesel. So don't expect those prices at the forecourts to come down anytime soon. We have a entire region that is in an escalatory spiral. Even whilst the deal between Iran and Oman is on the boards to be ratified or not, Trump continues to interfere. Trump continues to lie to the world, telling them that the Straits of Hormuz is open when it's not. There are oil tankers burning right now that the US tried to escort through the Omani corridor, as it's called, or the southern corridor. There is still something, even though it's pretty porous, of a US naval blockade attempting to interdict ships from Iran or ships carrying Iranian oil. As we speak, Iran is firing missiles at Bahrain. Indeed, Iran has continued to hit all the Gulf Arab states, all the US assets in those states, and has virtually driven the United States from the region. The Ansar Allah, the so-called Houthi in Yemen, they have been hitting Saudi infrastructure. They have been hitting Saudi oil. They have right now at the Gulf of Aden, there is a Saudi oil tanker ablaze. Iraq, mysteriously, you see, whilst Iran has been hitting what's part of Iraq, it's really what the Kurds would want to call Kurdistan. and they are decimating any forces building up in Kurdistan that the US could use as an invasionary force to parts of Iran. But that's with the full approval of the Iraqi resistance and the Iraqi government, and the two entities are entirely different. The Iraqi resistance has been attacking US bases, which is why the US, Britain, and the other NATO states who have had assets in Iraq have been bugging fucking out. Mysteriously, Saudi Arabia seemed to have attacked Iraq, which means Iraq is now going to attack Saudi Arabia. Confused? Oh, you fucking will be. At the moment, Trump and the giant Oompa Loompa seems to have a lid on Israel, but Netanyahu is talking out both sides of his face at once. He's saying one thing in English to the English press and another thing in Hebrew to the Hebrew press. Capiche? He's at the end of his political tether. It's not looking good for him in the polls. The Israeli economy is in the dustbin, or as Ursula von der Leyen would say, it's in tatters, tatters, I tell you. They are in no shape to fight anybody. They cannot defend themselves, and they are hated all around the world. I just watched a video where two members of the IDF rented an Airbnb in Italy, and when the owner of the Airbnb knew they were Israeli, immediately tossed them out. They responded by filming themselves, pulling the air conditioning off the walls and trashing the place, because that's what Israel does. Here in the UK, surprisingly, but we're going to call it a win, and you always got to take the wins. A chap, and I forget his name, I did post it at the time, who was losing his job in the NHS for anti-Zionist posts on his social media, has won his employment tribunal, who have said that being anti-Zionist, now not anti-Semitic, no one's anti-Semitic, but being anti-Zionist is a perfectly legal position to hold in the United Kingdom. Take the win. We have a situation where Hezbollah is kicking Israel's ass in Lebanon and continue to do so. Hezbollah is now in conversation with Al Jolani, yes, the head chopper in Syria. And whilst he is repugnant to me, and whilst he is a tool of the West, he is a creature of Turkey. Israel sees both Turkey and Egypt as potentially their next targets after Iran. The only player in town not to show his hand is Turkey. That may soon change. A Turkish mer- um, vessel carrying fruit and vegetables from Turkey to Russia was destroyed by a Ukrainian drone. Ukrainian, remember, if I say Ukrainian seaborne drone, I mean British seaborne drone. And yet, there's been no outcry of Article 5. Turkey is the second biggest member in NATO. Where is the hue and cry? Where's the outrage that a non NATO country just attacked a NATO merchant vessel? Well, that's right. For over 50 years, the EU has viewed Turkey as the red headed stepchild and refused to let them enter, whilst other countries with far less to offer Europe than Turkey have been allowed in. Turkey has the F-35 program dangled in front of them and then pulled away. Erdogan does like to sit in the fence, but even a fence sitter, sooner or later, has to choose which side to come down on. And I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would say that he's likely to come down on the side of Iran against the Zion Nazis of America and Israel. Good place for me to mention. There is a author out there, very good author, very good researcher called Walter Bosley. Now, he does a lot of things called the NIMSA. And if you'll recall the NIMSA airship mysteries, and he has just released on his YouTube channel, so look it up, him reading in two sections from did not consider nuclear weapons as the Wunderwaffen or war decisive is because they knew ultimately to control the ground, you had to control the air. We began to realize that back in World War One, where on the battlefield it was very easy for biplanes, even carrying a bag of grenades, to drop them on enemy troops. That developed through World War Two and then to the modern day, where we talk about air superiority and air supremacy. But the ultimate control is in controlling space. If you control space, if you have weapons that are in space, then you can control what happens on the ground. Why do you think Reagan had Star Wars? Why do you think the giant Oompa Loompa made Space Force? Why do you think he's talking about a golden fucking dome? Let's just say he's not the only one. But for a bit of fun, let's mention, and if it wasn't for the source, I'd be more excited, but Ukrainian scientists, Ukrainian astronomers are claiming they spotted a fleet of around 22 giant saucer shaped ships passing the moon right at the time of the Falcon 9 uh, slammed into the moon and created a brand new crater. There's truth everywhere, but you have to sift it out. Anyway, to get back to the geopolitics, which is far more worrying. The reason that disastrous dawn, desperate dawn, tackle is because America is virtually demilitarized. Israel is very short of air interceptors. America has already stripped Japan, South Korea, Taiwan of its air interceptors, which don't work anyway. Don't believe me, ask Ted Postal. But do believe me, because way back in Gulf fucking One, they couldn't shoot down Scuds. And if they couldn't shoot down Scuds, they sure as fuck can't shoot down the hypersonic missiles, the advanced ballistic missiles that are being fired by Russia and Iran. Never mind what China has up its sleeve. So, Trump's looking for a face saving measure in the Middle East. Because right now, the Straits of Hormuz are closed, the Red Sea is closed by the Houthi, Bab el Mandab. The various factions in the Gulf are starting to fall apart and fight with each other. The end of the sequel, what's it called again? I'll come back to me. Sykes-Picot. You see, World War One now, and everything relates back. If you remember Lawrence of Arabia, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a great movie with Pierre O'Toole, and it basically follows the historical facts. Of what we think of today as the modern Gulf states was just a big old mess. However, at the end of World War One, the British, French, and Belgians, what the fuck was Belgium doing in it? Doesn't matter. Stripped Germany of all its colonies, and Britain controlled all of the Middle East. Sykes-Picot drew lines in the map. From Iraq, they took the province of Kuwait. That's right, Kuwait belongs to Iraq. Oh, but wait, it gets better. From the Ansar Allah, from the Houthis, they took southern Saudi Arabia. That's the bit where the oil is. It's very possible that at the end of this, there will be no UAE, there will be no Bahrain, there will be no Kuwait, there will be no um, any of the Gulf Arab states, but Yemen may just take a chunk out of Saudi Arabia, and Iraq may well reclaim Kuwait. We live in a time when lines on the map are being redrawn. We also live in very dangerous times. America is rapidly rewriting its nuclear doctrine, and in its rewritten nuclear doctrine, it allows for more liberal use and more free use of what they call tactical nuclear weapons in any confrontation with Russia or China. Russia has also recently said that it may decide to use nuclear weapons anytime it wants. All the preconditions for it to do so have been met. So let's transfer our thoughts for a moment to the Russian Ukrainian war. And remember, much like the start of World War One and much like the start of World War Two, these various mini conflicts are slowly and surely amalgamating into one conflagration. And once more, in Ukraine, we have desperate Dawn. We've also got desperate Zelensky. We've also got desperate Macaroni, desperate Schultz, desperate von der Leyen, and all the other Nazi crazies. Ukraine said it would launch a 40-day drone war. They tried to inflict damage on Russian refineries. That failed. They tried to inflict damage on Russian petrol stations. Russia's response is that nowhere, anywhere on the contact line is there now a working Ukrainian petrol station, nor is there a functioning Ukrainian refinery. So, Ukraine, and when I say Ukraine, remember what I mean is the UK with US intelligence, with the help of France and Germany and Holland, but the UK primarily up to our fucking necks in it, then starts striking Wildberry and other Russian civilian warehouses. Well, go look what Russia did to Kiev last night. Ukraine has no air defense left. Oh, they've one or two drones that they can send to vacationing Russian families on a beach in Crimea. They can still kill children, but they have nothing left. There are growing protests in Kiev against Zelensky's rule and regime. Zelensky, once welcomed as the darling of the Western world, now gets shunned wherever he goes. One of the signs of a collapsing regime is the constant resignation and reshuffling of key ministry posts, including the ambassador to the US, her, who we have video of when Trump was at the press conference, the so-called latest attempt in his life. She was the one, while everyone else was screaming and running out the doors, she was swiping bottles of fucking bubbles off the tables. No wonder she's often implicated in corruption. And the world suddenly seems to be remembering that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt fucking countries in the world. One of the most telling signs is that Zaluzhny, remember him? Used to be head of the Ukrainian armed forces, was made ambassador to Londinium, where for the last 3 years he has been coached by MI5 and he's ready in the wings to replace Zelensky. Zaluzhny gave an interview. Very telling interview, actually. Zelensky's been all about being part of NATO. Trump said, "You want 300 Patriots? We ain't got them, and we need them." I've got a commander of CENTCOM that says if he doesn't get more Aegis destroyers, he's going to have to choose between defending Israel or the American homeland. At a time when there's an act going through American Senate to amalgamate the Pentagon with the idea. Not a good idea. If I was America, I would fight that. But I'm not, so why not let Israel drag you down? No license for Patriots has been granted to Zelensky. Zelensky put his neck on the line that Ukraine would get NATO membership. Zelensky just came out and said, look, Ukraine will never be a member of NATO. Now, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. He said, besides which, why would we want? NATO is still operating World War II tactics and operational command. It would take NATO a minimum of 12 years to become half the fighting force that Russia is today. Let that sink in. He's being positioned as someone that Russia could potentially negotiate with. They won't, but he's being positioned in that way. He's talking about a European army rather than NATO. Because as sure as shit, America wants to draw away from NATO. Now, the reason that Europe's in panic is because their one and only stratagem has been to provoke Russia into attacking a NATO European member state, and then screaming Article 5. Zelensky is talking about putting together a European army that may, in time, be capable of going up against Russia. Merz in Germany is in deep trouble. Even Private fucking Schultz managed to see out his term. BlackRock Merz may not. And the shenanigans are afoot to try and alienate, ban, outlaw the AfD because the AfD are sweeping to victory in every election. The AfD may be right wing, but at least they want peace with Russia, and at least they're wise enough to know that Germany exists because of cheap Russian energy. The Duran has done a couple of programs that are worth watching on why Schultz, BlackRock Merz might not see out his term. Of course, Never Hear Tears already gone. Andy Burnham, friend of Israel, Fabian Society member, but maybe just clever enough not to want to hug Zelensky or be too involved in with the Zelensky thing. New man in number 10, maybe a new man in Baklova Street. Hence, solution. Russia is pounding the dog crap out of Ukraine. Russia now has complete air supremacy. Ukraine is out of any air defenses. Even attack helicopters are operating openly in the Donbass. On four fronts, Russia are rapidly advanced. Now, we had the rumors that General Surovikin had been brought in, but the Russian High Command today issued its official orders, and Colonel General this became head of this, and Colonel General that became head of that. Surovikin was not mentioned. Doesn't mean he's not going to be in place. Like I told you, come September, Putin now has the ability, backed by the Duma, to raise and mobilize another 5 to 750,000 men. When they do that, I expect Surovikin to be put in charge of the final push for Odessa and Kiev. Capiche? Which is why Zelensky is screaming about ceasefires, air ceasefires, energy ceasefires, ceasefires in the line of contact. And Russia's going, sorry, time for that is well past. And there's nothing, no pressure that America or Europe can bring to bear that's going to change that calculation. Macaroni may be sitting in the Palace Elysee fantasizing about putting British, because the coalition of the willing now boils down to Britain and France, because no other country wants to get involved, not even Poland, and not Germany, not in the States. And so Britain and France are still dreaming of sending a tripwire force to Odessa or Western Ukraine, Lvov, or wherever. Ain't going to happen. They can try and mind the European Union, US can try and mount as much of a diplomatic push on the global south, on China, on India, on whoever they fucking want. They ain't going to be able to persuade Russia to stop now. Russia is not only effectively blockading Odessa and the other Ukrainian ports, making Ukraine a landlocked country, it's now systematically started blowing up the bridges which are supplying Ukraine from Romania and Poland. I'm afraid Desperate Dawn is looking at great big W's all over the place. But that's what makes it, of course, dangerous when you start talking about changing your nuclear doctrine. So now let me turn to other more pressing matters. More pressing, Ian. Yes, more pressing. They're now saying the El Nino will be the worst in 1,000 years. We have just experienced, it was happening even as I came to air, a horrendous thunderstorm downpour here in the north of Scotland. Not that far away, however, in England, they're in drought. Thames Water are telling people that they must restrict their water usage strictly to washing, drinking, and cooking. Now, if they don't, there will be no water supply. Lake Mead is drying up. The Hoover Dam is failing because the intake pipes are being clogged with mud. It's not the only US dam that's happening to. In this country, the wheat harvest has been brought in already. That, my friends, is 2 to 3 months early. But that's no surprise to me. In my garden that I look out on, I have a buddleia, which should be blooming well into September and is already showing signs of dying off as if it were the end of September. I have a rowan tree which has produced record amounts of berries that are already turning red. That should not happen until early October. Crop yields in the UK, they are quietly admitting, are the worst on record. The pole, the North Pole, in the last 30 days has travelled a record 10 kilometres south. It's now less than 215 kilometres from the so-called tipping, the irreversible tipping point. Scientists are now saying that irreversible pole shift could happen as early as February of next year. There have been more than 1,000 earthquakes in the last 30 days, and there are very competent earthquake scientists predicting that as early as tomorrow, I'm not predicting it, this is what they're saying, as early as tomorrow, there may be a huge earthquake on the west coast of America. We live in the days of signs and fucking wonders. And if you ain't paying attention, well, what can I tell you? In the meantime, wildfires continue to spread across the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, but more increasingly in the northern hemisphere. And whilst in the past I've been a skeptic of direct energy weapons, I have to say what happened in Washington State is awfully strange, where houses were concrete was burnt to the ground, and yet trees and bushes were left standing. The wildfires raging across France and Spain, other parts of Europe, Greece, even the ones that have happened in the UK, and the fires in Washington State all have one thing in common, and they are all proposed sites for massive data centers. Oh, uh the general populace are being herded out of the countryside into the mega cities, the 15-minute city zones. Agenda 2030 wrote large and bold, and they're doing it in front of your faces. They're not even hiding it anymore. So there you go. There's your briefing for this Wednesday evening. I'm sorry I can't bring you better news. Here's better news. The clutch on my Land Rover went, and it's too expensive for me to fix. So I had to buy a new car, not new because I never buy new, but I bought myself a nice new Astra today because I need wheels. And although it's a diesel, I know how to make diesel fuel. Just don't tell the government, eh? Just people, we are getting closer and closer. some interesting things for you to perhaps look at. Have a look at the US Army patents about using forest fires as a weapon of war, or of using forest fires as a way to dim the sun's radiation. Italy has a supervolcano that makes Yellowstone looks like a baby's toy, and it's been experiencing multiple earthquakes all around it. God willing, it won't stop me and the boss from visiting there next month. And if the supervolcano goes off, hey, we'll go out with a blaze of glory. So there you go. I am assuming that there will be a man in black this week. Glenn will let us know. No doubt, I can't see comments, so if he confirms, I can't see it. But I'm assuming there will be. And come Sunday, there will be a resumption of the Lone Gunman rides again. I've got some interesting homework for Alex and Glenn, if they're up for it, because, quite frankly, the suggestions that came from you people were quite boring, quite passé. Let's just give you a hint. We need to revisit the Mandela effect and the shutdown of CERN. There you are then. That's your briefing for this evening. I do hope you are all as well as can be expected in these times. Head on a swivel, as they say, but don't panic. When things arise, deal with them. Forewarned is forearmed. And in your own heart, you already know you are the resistance. Okay then, do me a favor. Over yonder is where you must now go to fuck the off. And when you get there, fuck the off a little bit more. But take care. Love you, clan. Good night. Alex, please end the broadcast.
I see a bad moon rising. I know there's trouble on the way. I see the earthquakes and lightning, and I see bad times ahead today. Don't come around tonight, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hear the hurricane blowing. I know the end is coming soon. I fear those rivers overflowing. I hear the voices breaking ruin. Don't come around tonight, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hope you got yourself together. I hope you're all prepared tonight. Looks like we're in for stormy weather. Wonder what you've been thinking about tonight. Don't come around tonight, bound to be a fight. There's a band on the ride. Don't come around tonight, bound to take your life. There's a band on the ride. There's a band on the ride.